Welcome to my channel and thanks for watching. The silence of our living room was deceptive. A calm sea before the storm. Jill, my wife, of 5 years, was late again, nothing new. Yet something felt off this time as I sat there flipping through the channels, not really watching anything when she finally walked through the door. Her smile was tired but her eyes avoided mine. Sorry, I'm late. Traffic was a nightmare, she said, dropping her purse carelessly onto the sofa as she kicked off her shoes. It's all right, I replied, though the tightness in my voice betrayed my frustration. I had been feeling this gap growing between us, an invisible chasm that seemed to widen with each passing day. As she went to freshen up, her purse, a slouchy leather thing she loved, toppled over, spilling its contents onto the floor. Sighing, I went over to help gather her things. That's when I saw it. An old photograph frayed at the edges, hidden beneath her wallet, and a cluster of receipts. Curiosity piqued, I picked it up, and my heart stopped. It was a photo of my brother Max, grinning at some long-forgotten joke, looking younger and carefree, but it was the writing on the back that turned my blood cold. Love you always. The world seemed to tilt. Max, it couldn't be, yet the evidence was there in Jill's loopy handwriting, a stark, brutal betrayal captured in ink. When Jill returned, I was holding the photo, my hands shaking visibly. What is this, Jill? My voice was a low growl, the hurt and anger mingling into a dangerous concoction. She froze, her face draining of color. Tom, how long? I cut across her feeble start, my entire posture rigid. It's not what you think, she began, her voice trembling. I can explain. I threw the photo at her feet. Explain? How do you explain this? The room was thick with tension, each second stretching painfully. Jill's eyes filled with tears, her usual composure crumbling. It was a mistake. I was lonely. You were always working, and Max, he was there. Her words stung, a slap of reality that I wasn't prepared for. You were my life, Jill, and my brother. The betrayal from two people I loved was a double-edged sword slashing through my heart. We'll talk about this when you're calmer, she said quietly, her voice broken by sobs. But I knew there would be no calm, no forgiveness, only retribution. There's nothing left to discuss. The following weeks were a blur of cold silences and bitter arguments. I became a shadow in my own home, plotting meticulously. Jill's life, once filled with friends and laughter, dwindled as I isolated her socially, contacting everyone who mattered to her, exposing her deceit. The divorce papers were the final blow, delivered by a stony fate. Me, Jill, once vibrant and full of life, looked defeated, her spirit broken. I hope you find what you're looking for, she said quietly on the day she left, her eyes void of the love that once lived there. I already did, I replied, the picture of Max in my hand, the words love you always echoing mockingly in my memory. The days following Jill's departure were filled with a hollow victory each morning as I walked through the empty spaces of our once shared home. The silence was a constant reminder of the cost of my revenge. Yet there was one more confrontation I had been avoiding, one that needed to be faced. My brother Max. I found him at his apartment on a chilly Thursday evening. The air was crisp, carrying a bite that matched my mood. As I knocked on his door, the sound echoed heavy with the weight of impending confrontation. Max opened the door, his face breaking into a smile that faltered when he saw my expression. Tom, hey, we need to talk. I cut him off, pushing past him into the apartment, the familiar setting, a place where we had shared countless beers and laughs, now felt alien and hostile. Max closed the door slowly, turning to face me with a guarded look. I Was wondering when you'd come, did you? Think I wouldn't find out? My voice was calm, but it carried an edge sharp enough to cut. I confronted him, holding his gaze. Jill and you, Max, how could you? He sighed, running a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration and guilt. It wasn't planned, Tom, it just happened. No, it's no excuse, it just happened, I echoed mockingly. You betrayed me, Max, with my wife. The betrayal felt raw, every word I spoke laced with venom. Max looked away, unable to meet my eyes. I'm sorry, Tom, I don't know what else to say. Sorry doesn't even begin to cover it, I snapped, pacing the room. My anger was a living thing pulsing through the veins of the cold walls around us. Look, I know you're angry, I interrupted, laughing, but literally angry doesn't even scratch the surface, Max. You and Jill destroyed everything, and for what a fling. It was more than that, Max said quietly, his voice firm, but I know that doesn't make it better. I lost my brother because of it. The room fell silent, the tension thick. My thoughts raced, the hurt mingling with the need to inflict pain, to make him feel a fracture of what I felt. What do you want from me, Tom? Max finally asked, his voice tired. I want you to feel what I felt, I said, my voice low. I want you to understand the depth of the betrayal. Max nodded slowly, resignation etching his features. I already do, Tom, every day I live with that guilt. My anger still simmering found no solace in his words. Living with guilt isn't enough. I turned to leave, pausing at the door. You'll see me again, Max, this isn't over. As I stepped out into the cold night, the air seemed to freeze around me. The path forward was unclear, but one thing was certain, this was far from over. The betrayal had set things in motion, a chain of retribution that would unravel more than just the lives of those immediately involved. I walked away from Max's apartment, the echo of the door closing behind me, a resounding gavel in the court of my personal justice. The next steps were murky, lined with the shadows of plans yet to unfold, each one a step further into the abyss of revenge. In the weeks that followed my confrontation with Max, the city seemed colder, every street corner a reminder of the past I was trying to escape. The weight of the double betrayal hung over me, a specter in the fog of my daily routine, but I wasn't done yet. The plan for retribution had only begun to take shape, and I was determined to see it through. One evening I sat in the dim light of my living room, the glow of my laptop casting shadows on the walls as I scoured social media and the internet for any traces of Jill's new life. My fingers paused over the keyboard when I found her profile there. She was smiling in a picture, seemingly carefree. A surge of anger rushed through me and I clicked away, my heart racing. I needed to do more, to push further. The photo of Max and the message scribbled on its back haunted me, and it wasn't enough to simply let them move on. While I wallowed, I decided to reach out to mutual friends, spinning a tale of betrayal that left them shocked and siding with me. Each conversation was a calculated move, isolating Jill and Max further from the community we once shared. Days turned into nights, and one such night I found myself at a familiar bar, one where Jill and I had often visited. I knew she sometimes came here with her friends, a fact confirmed as I saw her laughing at a table across the room. Steeling myself, I approached, my resolve hard as stone. Jill, I said, my voice cutting through the chatter. Turning heads, she looked up, her smile fading as she recognized me. Tom, what are you doing here? I could ask. You the same, I replied, my tone I see enjoying your new life. Jill's friends eyed me warily, sensing the tension. She stood up, her expression one of Defiance. I'm trying to move on. Tom, what do you want from me now? Moving on just like that? I scoffed, my anger bubbling up. You think you can just start over and everything's fine? Jill's face hardened. I made a mistake, Tom. I'm trying to make amends. I don't know what more you want. I want you to understand what you took from me, I said sharply, my gaze piercing. You destroyed our life together, Jill, and you pulled my brother into it. She looked away, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I'm sorry, Tom. I truly am, but I can't undo the past. Neither can I replied coldly, but I can make sure you don't just walk away from this unscathed. Jill shook her head, her friends now standing ready to intervene. What do you want from me, Tom? I want you to live with the consequences, I said, turning to leave, the eyes of the bar on me just like I have to. As I walked out, the chilly air hit me with the reality of my actions. The bridge between Jill and me was burned now. Nothing more than ashes of a once connection, but there was no satisfaction, no closure. The ripple effects of our actions were only just beginning to spread, and I knew that the retribution I sought was turning into an obsession that could consume me. I had to decide how far I was willing to go, how much of myself I was willing to lose to this vendetta. The night stretched out before me, a canvas of dark thoughts, each one a step deeper into the abyss. The world seemed dimmer, grayer, as if the very sky reflected the turmoil within me. My path of vengeance had led me here, standing outside the law office where the last act of my plan would unfold. Today I would finalize the severance of all ties with Jill and ensure that Max felt the sting of betrayal as deeply as I had. As I entered the lobby, the sharp click of my shoes on the marble floor echoed, sounding like the ticking of a clock, counting down the final moments of an era I had arranged for all of us to meet here under the guise of signing some final legal papers. Jill and Max believed they were coming to find closure, but I had other plans. Jill arrived first, her face pale, her eyes wary. She gave a small nod as she saw me, the lines of strain around her mouth deepening. Max walked in moments later, his usual confidence stride faltered as his eyes met mine. There was a silent acknowledgement of the storm that was about to break. We're all here, let's get this over with, I said, my voice flat, devoid of any emotion I once felt for these people who stood before me as mere shadows of their past selves. In the cold, sterile conference room, the lawyer laid out the documents explaining the final dissolution of asset and separation terms. Jill and Max listened, their faces solemn, occasionally stealing glances at me, perhaps searching for a sign of the man they once knew. As the lawyer concluded, I stood clearing my throat. Before we sign, there's something you both should know. I paused, letting the weight of my words hang in the air. Jill and Max looked up, tension written across their faces. I've sold the house, I began, watching their surprised reactions. And not just the house, I've liquidated everything we own together. Jill, everything has been donated to charity. You'll walk away from this with nothing. Jill's face crumpled, her voice a whisper. Tom, why do this? I turned to Max, my gaze harsh. And for you, brother, I've made sure that our business ties are cut. I've bought out your shares at a loss. You're out of the company. Max stood abruptly, his chair scraping back. You can't do this, Tom. That company is as much mine as it is yours. Not anymore, I said, feeling a cold satisfaction. Consider it a lesson in loyalty. The lawyer, a silent observer until now, interjected, all this is legal and binding. They've been informed. Jill was sobbing quietly, her dreams shattered by my harsh decree. Max looked as if he wanted to Strike me, his hands clenched at his sides. You planned this all along, Max. Accused his voice. Raw, yes, I admitted the bitterness. Seeping through just as you planned your betrayal with my wife with nothing left to say. The lawyer handed us the pens. We signed the papers in silence, the scratches of our signatures sounding final and irrevocable as they left the room. I felt the hollow victory consuming me. The door closed with a quiet click, but it sounded like a gunshot in my ears, marking the death of relationships and the birth of a solitude crafted by my own hands. I walked out into the fading light of day, the city sprawling before me. I had taken my revenge, cruel and complete, but the cost was etched deeply into my soul. I realized then that my quest for retribution had left me isolated, a man devoid of the capacity for trust or love. Jill and Max, forever marked by my vengeance, would carry their scars into silent, separate futures, and I a victor in the cruest what had once been love and kinship. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the ground, I understood the true price of betrayal and revenge. In the end, we were all victims, caught in a web of deceit and vengeance, from which there was no escape. The tragedy was complete, the deception laid bare, and the remnants of our intertwined lives left to wither in the cold light of our mutual hatred.